ability to kind of just hang back. Like, you still have your passive, right? But just kind of hang back, drop in the ultimate, pop some damage right on that path. And now, you know, kind of follow up through that. Lord, top side. They're going to lose the mid turret here as it's worked on. Saksa leading at that front already. Look at the damage. Mike has to respect it. Holding on to the immortality, though. So already, base fully down. Morrow goes into the blazing duet. Still going to be pushing 4. Still the damage.
Against Burmese schools. Sheesh.
Man, sheesh. Because for a second there, I thought they would actually be able to somehow, some way, stay into the game, maybe a little bit longer. But I think even if that was the case, you're so far behind, man. You know, and like, for how long can you hold on to at that point? And that was kind of the thing, right? Like, it was just worked on. Burmese Ghouls did really well. I mean, it kind of seemed like they struggled a little bit, though, like, to end the game. But ultimately, they had such a far ahead lead. Like, I honestly think at this point in the game, if they didn't have the kind of lead that they had, for some reason, I just feel like Twisted Minds could have pulled another defense out, right? But it was just like sheer force that the game was ended there. And so, and just breaking it down, I know we'll probably take a look at the highlights in a little bit and whatnot, but some of the connections, some of the overlapping from Burmese Ghouls, like, they weren't landing the stuff that they had to. I think one of the biggest struggles here, though, for Twisted Minds specifically was, dude, how many times did Morrow get locked down in the early game? I think before the 6-minute mark, he had, what, 3-4 deaths, you know? And that's tough when you are the guy that's looking for those setups, right? You are the Ruby. You are Ruby, right? Who's a top pick right now for a specific reason.
Yeah, Ruby definitely being a top pick, and I agree with you, right? Like, I think shutting down Morrow into the early game was some of the key aspects, and we'll see some of the highlights here. Again, some turtle takes definitely lead it into the Twisted Minds' favor, but definitely Burmese Ghouls just giving so much pressure. And then in the early stage, shutting down Morrow just allowed Burmese Ghouls to control everything that they possibly can. And you can see losing the mid turret early on and around about the 8-minute mark. What you were saying, that just the aggression, they didn't even care about the turrets. They were so far ahead in gold that they just wanted the end gauge. They wanted to push back Twisted Mind as much as possible. And I think it just all attributed to how much trouble Morrow had in the early game. And again, I think if the difference was in the favor of Twisted Minds and it wasn't so far apart, that they could have mounted up some great defenses. They baited out quite a bit of utility from Burmese Ghouls, and I think that took Burmese Ghouls by surprise. They weren't able to utilize a lot of that backline dive, and when they could, they were put into a situation like this. Morrow utilizing that I'm offended to set quite a bit of the team. And Twisted Minds, again, like I said, going back to the drawing board, I think that is where they need to keep their mindset at. Kind of keeping Morrow. Morrow has to maybe not be so aggressive in the jungle, because Burmese Ghouls is going to respond to that and take everything they can.
I'm going to follow suit here, man. Yeah, you're doing a lot of puns here with Twisted Minds, right? They need to go back to the drawing board and untwist their minds, man. Game 1, like, I feel like their minds were the twisted ones definitely here, right?
Yes.
Because, again, it was... They struggled from early on until now. I mean, at this point in the game, when they finally finished it, right? Like, things collapsed all around them. And it was just, yeah, I don't know. When I was watching, I was like, man, I feel like they're just kind of tripping over their feet here. Like, something is not connecting. And, you know, in essence, it's, yeah, their minds were twisted themselves, right? So MVP of the game here, game number 1, Stitch. Getting it with the Claude, a pick that has been dominating so far for very apparent reasons. Pairs up really well with Nana, by the way, right? I mean, it's great, the pressure that AoE kind of burst damage, or even just the path where you think about it, Nana plus Claude, like, you have to get out of the way, right? Whether it's the direct line or, you know, the blazing duet coming through. It's so difficult for teams to actually kind of find an initiation and go off that. Even if you land, let's say Morrow was stacked, right? He was tanky as can be, and he lands a great I'm offended. You still have to let your team go into the pretty much the fire, right? Because of the 2 heroes that was drafted for Burmese Ghouls in this game 1. And that's why it was so difficult, because even if it wasn't for that economy difference, man, like, to make that work, you really have to have things kind of land into place properly.
100%. That Claude is definitely detrimental to some team comps, especially going into the mid to the late game. And then, like, even building upon what you were saying, the Nana, that Molina's blitz, it can catch you off guard because it just doesn't have the visuals. And when you're trying to think about position and you're trying to think about where, you know, Burmese Schools is attacking from, you don't see that the Molino's blitz just coming out of nowhere. And then once you notice it, you're being hit by a Blazing Duet paired together. And that's just so much burst that when there's like 5 people, 10 people in like a little bitty circle, it's hard to see. And I think that's where it comes from. Now, kind of thinking about what Burmese Schools did there, and I think it kind of was won by Burmese Schools into the draft phase, right? That last pick of Kai was such a clutch, neutral objective hero, just countering that Fredrin on every aspect. And then it just came into play that it countered it just allowed that burst from the Molina's Bliss and the Blazing Duets, and then catching Morrow off. So coming back to the round table, Twisted Minds they got a lot to think about.
They do. And again, going back at what's stake here as we got through game 1, man, like they have to fix it right now. Because it's single elimination and you're at match point, right? Burmese Ghouls, especially off the way that game 1 just kind of unfolded, you know, you really have to snap out of it quickly, because there was, besides that one, you know, I think it was the first Lord that marched into the base where, yeah, they had a pretty good defense, but they weren't actually able to turn anything around it. And for a second, in one of those Lords, you think that, okay, maybe they're in a position, hey, to possibly contest this, get in a position. But then they're like, no, we can't, because we have to deal with those side lanes pushing in. And that's what I'm saying. Like, you'll see a lot of teams do this, where it's kind of like they take that risk. They know they have a Novaria. You park her into the base, right? She's just shooting down the waves the best she can and trying to provide some form of vision or whatsoever for around the Lord pit, you know? And then you just hope, hey, team, good luck. Like, you guys, this is the miracle play we were talking about. Like, try to get something off, but again, when you're so far behind, we're talking, you know, massive gold difference here, it does get very difficult to do that. And then you consider the conceal plays. And if you notice, even back from that one Lord fight, that last one, Burmese Ghouls, their positioning for the conceal was great. And there was so much pressure there the entire game, man. Like, that is what we were talking about when you really have to look at the play styles here. Burmese Ghouls, it's the personality of this organization is still there. But I think because you have this impact, and we talked about it before even going to the draft, man, knowing Dillar, knowing Soxa and these guys and how they kind of fit into as individual players and make an impact. That's what we saw from Burmese Ghouls in game 1, right? So it's like, if you're Twisted Minds, how do you adjust from that? I know you mentioned this already. Twisted Minds, they have a Filipino, you know, coach that has worked with them and these players at different times throughout the past. So, you know, he's going to be looking at that right now when you're talking about going to the drawing board and really like, okay, we need to kind of change this. And again, if it comes down, it always sits in the draft. That's something we always say. And that's where it can happen, you know, like, because even looking at the draft, it wasn't a bad draft. You know, it wasn't terrible. And it's just, unfortunately for them, when you have that kind of a detrimental start where your roamer is just locked down every time. And I love what you said. I love that you pointed that out earlier, where you're like, hey, that Akai pick was on point for that last pick, because it really just solidified what Burmese Ghouls wanted to do for game 1.
Yeah, it was a great counter to what Twisted Minds had in store. And I always go to say that it seems in the current meta into MLBB that the second pick team always has like a little bit of an advantage when it comes to the ban and pick phase, the drafting phase. It goes to show that that last pick can be the make it or break it for a team. Now, going back to the drawing board, right? Both teams, Filipino coaches. Well, Twisted Minds, the Filipino coach is from Triple Esports. They have Triple Esports is most of what we're seeing player-wise in Twisted Minds. But then we're going to be going to Burmese Ghouls, right? They got Coach Dale. right? And I'm actually pretty familiar with Coach Dale because BTK was utilizing Coach Dale quite a bit and one of the last NACTs. And that just goes to show that, like, the Burmese Schools has a loaded roster. Like, they're ready, even though that the roster has changed a little bit from M5, they're still ready. Two Filipinos coming into the lineup. It goes to show that, I can say it, that Philippines is just kind of what teams want. It's kind of king when it comes to the lineup. And I know that you're liking that, no, not trying to stroke some egos here, but it is what it is.
Hey, man. I'm only half Filipino, but I'll take pride in it too, right? It's funny because a lot of people talk about Philippine imports, but really, if you look at what's happening around the world, I mean, there's other imports from other countries going in, and this is kind of what you have happening, right? You have like this mesh of these talents, these players, these coaches, these analysts going around the world, giving their experience to these other regions, and they learn from them. And it's funny because we did a podcast leading into M5, and we got the opportunity to talk a lot of these coaches, right? Like how was their time going into these other regions, going into these other leagues, and working with these players that for the longest time, a lot of them will say, hey, we've been watching the Philippines, we've been watching Indonesia, we've been watching, this part of the world, and we like what they're doing. And these coaches kind of transfer that knowledge to these teams and these regions, and you see it kind of develop over time. And I think that's why even when we're looking at these two teams here, despite a lot of the teams having imports, right, here and there, you still have to basically take in consideration that the impact is there and everybody is getting better. It's just 100%. Really when in these situations, you kind of have to adjust quickly. And that's what we were talking about, and in just a bit, we're going to be looking at a video here to kind of showcase what's been going on here, because I know a lot of people that have been watching the stream and online and everything, a lot of people follow different players, like their favorite players, their favorite teams, whatever, their coaches. And I'm sure a lot of people are curious on what exactly is happening, out there and kind of how things unfold. So just a bit, we'll be taking a look at that video here to kind of take us through. So we just got word. Let's go ahead and take a look at this video.
In a world that seeks a balance between metaverses and healthy lifestyle, video games and traditional sport, live shows and web entertainment, we found the only way to harmony. Introducing a new era in the realm of sports, Phygital, a revolutionary fusion of the physical and digital worlds. This is an unparalleled mix of the most exhilarating and dynamic youth sports disciplines, all integrated with popular video games and cutting-edge technological devices. Can participate in Phygital competitions. Any sport has the potential to basketball, hockey, racing, martial arts, shooters, and many other sports have successfully adapted to the new reality. The 2024 Games of the Future is a global multi-sport event that represents the pinnacle of Phygital sports worldwide. The event is attended by best clubs and teams, bringing together 2,000 participants from over 100 countries. It marks the beginning of a series of top Phygital tournaments that will take place annually worldwide. The current official program of Games of the Future includes 21 innovative disciplines. They are classified into 5 groups, which we refer to as challenges: sports, technology, speed, tactics, and strategies, openness, show, fun, and healthy lifestyle. Coming our way is the exciting Phygital era. So stay tuned, join our global Phygital community, and come over to the upcoming Games of the Future. Emerge as winners and heroes of the new era. Games of the Future, made for young generations.
It just clicked, man, with that video. It's physical and digital.
I was actually about to say, if you're not inspired by that video that was just played with the combination of physical and technology, I don't know what. Especially in a day and age where we're seeing AI take advantage of that. I was like, I was like, dang. I was like, that's inspiring.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. You know, again, for a lot of people, they wish they could, you know, kind of witness this whole event kind of unfold, because there's obviously a lot going on, right? There's more than just the MLBB tournament going on here, because I like how there's this kind of integration between the physical, the digital, all these things, the 21 different things that they're basically celebrating, innovations that they called it. You know, great video there. And again, even if you missed it earlier, you guys just joined us. You have to look at the stage that they showcased earlier before game one, because we were surprised as well. Now we're going to be jumping into game number 2 draft here. Burmese Ghouls, once again, we'll be switching things up. Now, draft-wise, some similar heroes popping up, obviously. You know, the Joy Rafaela still taken out by Twisted Minds. Burmese Ghouls on the flip side, respecting that Fanny pick. They take the Arlon out, Barrett, and lastly, we see the Matilda. So first phase of bans already out here. What are we looking at first pick here, G?
Right now, we're probably going to be seeing, from the side of Burmese Ghouls, probably a utility pick. Probably an EXP if I had to imagine at this point. It seems like that they normally pick the EXPs or the roam, and they're just going to run it back. Burmese Schools felt comfortable in their current draft. They first pick Gwyn, or second pick Gwyn last time, and that allows them to just keep it going. And again, it's that flexible role that Gwyn brings to it. It can either bait you into thinking it's the jungle or bait you into thinking it's the roam. Now, I do like Twisted Minds aspect of these 2 picks that they go with. The Ruby, Morrow, coming into this game, needs to keep in mind that Burmese School is aggressive. If they catch you, they're going to take advantage of you. Same thing with the Claude. I like it. It's a great late game. It's going to allow them to scale, and I want to kind of see how Burmese Schools replies to the Claude.
I was going to ask, man, is this the redemption? Is this redemption for Morrow here? At least like on the Ruby? Like, I like the fact that you pointed it out, right? You at least you have the Claude this time for Twisted Minds. I think that's good to start with here. But I don't know, man. If you're Twisted Minds, you also might want to somehow take care of the Kai, because a lot of those lockdowns with heavy spin worked really well. They could let that slip through. They could not worry about it, of course, at the same time. Burmese Ghouls, though, pick up a Paquito. Man, Paquito, it's kind of funny because if I remember right, group stages, did he show up in the mid lane? I'm trying to recall if he showed up in the mid lane. I think he did. And it's funny, right? Because he's a threat, right? Before, he was one of those heroes that's so flexible, fits in a lot of different roles. But obviously this time he's not in the mid lane. And I think still the fact is that burst damage potential is really what we have to, of course, pay attention to, because now you're basing your draft on the fact that you have IMU across from you, right, from Burmese Ghouls. And I like the pick, right? I want to ask you, since you're the smart man here, how do you feel about Aurora?
I like Aurora. To be honest, I was actually going to talk about that, and leading into that is perfect. AP Bryn was having the toughest time against Aurora. The Frigid Glacier that she brings to the playing field, just in team comps, can just freeze everybody. And not only does it freeze you, it brings such an impact and burst damage to the playing field that it's almost comparable to Nana. It just comes out of nowhere. And then paired with the Blazing Duet is just going to be a monster for Twisted Minds again to burst off of against Burmese Ghouls. But kind of getting into the second ban phase here, we do see Minnow being banned up. Wild.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of, like, for Twisted Minds specifically, the fact that they do have, you know, with the lineup they have in this first phase, I think, again, it can work well. But you're kind of hoping that you get the Frigid Glacier off. And yeah, it's a mouthful. Let's just call it Glacier, right? Get the Glacier off and work with that. And to be able to be a little more aggressive, because like you said, the fact that it kind of works like a Nana, like you have that also a little room to work with when you're relying on that passive, you know, being available to you. And you can poke down, hopefully, to lead into the Blazing Duet. Or, once again, if this is redemption arc for Morrow, you actually have great tools just in the Claude and the Aurora alone, right? You can land an I'm Offended, and that is deadly, man. If they can actually land that and pull that off, that can be very deadly. So real quick, take us through those last couple bans that we went through.
Yeah, we do see that they ended up taking care of the Harith and then the Exborg. Burmese Ghouls responding to Twisted Minds pick of the Exborg constantly throughout this tournament. And then I also like Twisted Minds. Harith in the gold lane can be detrimental against a Claude just because he's able to build those shields up. Now, I do like Twisted Minds pick here. They go for the Fredrin, right? Now, again, this could fall into the hands of Burmese Ghouls to pick up that Akai. They didn't opt to go to ban that out, and this could be a great counter to the Fredrin. So, and I think Twisted Minds is coming back into the aspect that they weren't scared of the Akai. Though the Akai did change the tide of quite a few of the fights with that heavy spin, that they're not falling into that fear factor that Burmese Ghouls was trying to instill.
Cool. Just as you were saying that too, I was thinking about, fear factor or not. The great thing is now you have the Grok across from you from Burmese Ghouls, and then you have this Bruno, right? There's a lot of CC potential here from both sides, really. And again, it comes down to how you're able to utilize that. One thing I love about Grok is just the fact that for the most time, you do see him with some great initiations with the Wild Charge, but a lot of times too, it's used to peel and save the team, and you have that actually in a couple different heroes here for Burmese Ghouls. So if Twisted Minds is thinking like, yeah, let's come out swinging, let's try to get these setups here. Well, then that's the thing that Burmese Ghouls, like, I'm expecting them to kind of adapt, right? You use the Wild Charge if you have to. You can use the Terrify mechanic with having the Valentina there for you. You can even use the Spatial Migration, like in a way to kind of help the team either initiate or disengage. And so there's a lot of things that can fall into place here.
Definitely. And I like both picks here. We do see the aggression coming from Burmese Ghouls, so I think that's something we'll have to keep an eye on, Naisu, is how does Twist Minds respond to Burmese Ghouls being match point? They're good. Like, this should be the make it or break it for Twisted Minds, and they're going to be bringing everything to the Phygital games of the future. This match is the make it or break it. Now, going into it, the fear factor, I think, is what was there, but again, you can kind of see Burmese Ghouls not running back completely what they did first round, right? They're still bringing in some of that diversity, and I think that is what might catch Twisted Minds off guard, right? They're almost playing exactly similar to last game. Like you were saying, I do think it is Maro's redemption arc here. He needs to come into this game thinking about what the draft that just came from Burmese Ghouls. You got to make sure to not walk into certain areas and keep that in mind. But we're going to get into the game.
That's the biggest way to put it, G. You got to be able to not get caught out here for Maro and really try to find these lockdowns here. So we're going to be loading up as we jump into the Land of Dawn. Once again, it's match point here. Burmese Ghouls in this best of 3. It's a single elimination match. Twisted Minds has to stay into the game here. And with the draft that they have, are they in position? Once again, Saksa in that jungle on the Guinevere. And across from a man, we of course have 7 Oda on this Fredrin again. We'll see how this kind of unfolds and what the pacing is going to be here for both these teams.
I do think that kind of just building upon like two aggressive teams going at it, I think Twisted Minds has to take a step back, right? Burmese Ghouls controls that aggression. They have a great controlled aggression, and Twisted Minds is just going to have to play a little passive here. They need to come online and stay and keep Burmese Ghouls at bay. If they can just essentially bait them, not lose too much, and keep them at bay, I think the passive play is the correct approach. And we can already see that coming from Maro, right? He's not being as vision aspect as he used to be last time. He's going to apply the pressure in the EXP lane, because we were seeing that Delar was just going insane against Mike there. And I think that we need to utilize the Yuzong quite a bit from Twisted Minds, right? That's the only response we really have to the Bruno.
Yeah, and with that, still the focus on the top lane already, looking for that first blood blow. Whew, Delar, the flicker out will be just fine, but this is what we're talking about, the pressure, right, from Twisted Minds, the lineup that they have. Oh, even with that, Nico trying to get the combination off when he had that offended stolen over from Maro. But now with that, First turtle is going to be up here for both teams to go ahead and start up. Burmese Ghouls getting in position. Blink not having that level 4, doesn't have the wild charge yet. Dragon Form going to be used by Mike, pushing Soxa back. Nico tries to jump in. There's the wild charge, though. 7 Oda able to secure it. Now Soxa on the run as he gets taken down. First blood from Mike.
This is good. Twisted Minds able to get the first blood here. Burmese Ghouls being put at bay, right? Like, and I feel like the Gwyn, right? The Gwyn is it's more of the assassin type of jungle. It can get in, get out, and you have to utilize it like that, right? And I think from the side of Twisted Minds, having that utility jungle is going to keep Burmese Ghouls at bay. Now, to response, I think Burmese Ghouls needs to press even harder against Twisted Minds, because you can already see that the passive plays are happening from them, and they're just keeping Burmese Ghoul at bay. Economically, not too bad. Burmese Ghouls keeping it up, as well as Twisted Minds even securing that first blood. Not too much of an impact in the overall gold lead here. We see an engage.
Okay. Yeah, as we jump in, Soxa, though, able to survive. Whoa, there's the pull, though. I'm offended. Going to find the connection they were looking for. Now going to be caught under the wall. Maro's going to be the one to fall. 7 Oda going to be the next target. Goes in with the Appraiser's Wrath. Still trying to hold on. Able to scoot on under the turret and will survive. That was a crazy trade. I mean, we lost it for a second, but we came back, and it was just a fight going for it.
It was like a rabbit being pulled out of a hat right there. We were like, what's going down? And then bam, they hit us. And Burmese Ghouls showing Twisted Mind what they're bringing to the land of dawn here. That was a good go by Burmese Ghouls. And it just goes to show that they have a really solid front line. And oh my God. Wow. Mike
was just taken out. Yeah, that was very quick. Again,
KO'd.
Laying things together. Yeah, getting KO'd there. But still, Burmese Ghouls trying to find this lead that they can. Maro going to go in with I'm offended. Nico, look at the damage. The burst is there as Nico's going to be the one to fall. And now it's Blink going to be the focus. The next target gets shattered down, but will be able to survive for now. Delar trying to help him out. Turtle's going to be up. Nico out of the picture. They have to carefully approach this. Mike, also there, Coffin in position. There we go. The Glaciers coming down, but I'm not sure if they're going to be able to get the position they were looking for. Delar now going to be working on it. There's the Violent Requiem. Turtle going to be secured by Soxa. He's able to pull it through. Still going. Cuffin's going to be the one to fall now. 7 Oda there. Jumps in. Wall's going to come down, but the flicker follows through. Delar looking for the kill on Mike. Gets dragged down. Back to it. Nico gets the kill, though. No one falls for Burmese Ghouls. 2 down for Twisted Minds.
And I think they might want to take out Maro here as well. KO punches coming out. Able to secure the kill for Nico there. Burmese Ghouls now showing that same aggression that we seen into the last game. And I got to give it up to him, right? That was crazy. The Black Dragon utilized by Twisted Minds was their key. They were attempting to try to zone out and instill fear into Burmese Ghouls utilizing that Black Dragon, and it just wasn't there. They didn't give up the pressure. They were like, I don't care about that dragon in the sky. Bring it at me. Utilize that Violent Requiem to set him up, and then not only utilizing that spatial migration to come in and hit the retreat on the turtle was just crazy from the side of Burmese Ghouls.
For Twisted Minds, once again, in this a position where they're finding themselves economically falling behind, right? This is tough. Big item pickups here, too, for Burmese Ghouls. Berserker's Fury there. And also to deal with some of the sustainability from Twisted Minds already with the Halberd. So they're still going to be working on it. The resources are also going to be taken through here. Burmese Ghouls, when they have the lead, this is what they like to do, right? They like to continuously put the pressure here. Pay attention to Blink. A lot of the times he's going to be doing exactly what he has to with this Grok pick, and he will be decisive enough to use that wild charge when he needs to. There's the jump in, though. Maro could be in trouble if they commit further. He's quite tanky himself, so right now, nothing but it's Twisted Minds holding on to the pressure. Concealed play going to be used. Blink still there, providing the vision with this Grok. Turret's going to fall, though. Tier 2 in the bottom lane. And there's nothing right now that Twisted Minds can do. Turtle's going to spawn, though.
Yeah, I mean, Twisted Minds, they attempted to do what I was saying earlier on. Keep that passive play in mind. And try to secure some of the neutral objectives, but I do think they have lost, they kind of tunnel vision into that aspect, and and trying to figure out how to counter the aggressiveness of Burmese Ghouls is the play here for Twisted Minds. They're being pushed back against that wall once again, being forced to mount up defenses. I like their play right here. They're attempting to try to take something. If they can't get the turtle, maybe we can take a tower. Oh, they might be able to get a pick here in the bottom lane.
Well, still going to be working on it. That's Delar going to be in trouble. Flickers out, though. He's able to survive. The 1-2. Delar survives despite a full-on focus, plus the turtle taken for Burmese Ghouls.
That, man, I thought they were going to get a pick and a turret, but we do see Burmese Ghouls clapping back.
Clapping back they do. They get a kill. They're happy about Burmese Ghouls furthering the lead they had. Malefic Roar picked up by Stitch. The damage department's gonna hurt here. And right now, Twisted Minds backs completely against the wall under the 10-minute mark. It's looking dire here. Still, Morrow gonna jump in. I'm offended. Still, the wild charge comes through too. It's a mega kill already for Nico. And Twisted Minds down the roamer, trying to hold on to these shields the best they can on these last turrets into the base.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give it up to Nico there. We see Morrow trying to come in to get a great I'm offended set, and then Nico like, hold up, I'm offended that you just tried to offend me, and then pulled back the clap there, and that just allowed Burmese Ghouls to just keep scaling. The economic lead is definitely in the favor of Burmese Ghouls and Twisted Minds. What I think they're really lacking compared to last game is I don't know if they have that defense that they can mount.
Oh, once again, conceal play going to be used. Mike going to be the focus. Still surviving for now. Wild charge goes through. Blink gets the kill. What a play. Now Morrow going to be in trouble. Goes in. Another flicker as Morrow falls 2 down under the turret of Twisted Minds. Still, Burmese Ghouls unrelentless here as they assault parts of the base. Still working on the turrets, though. Twisted Minds, what can they do? Trying to hold on here. 10,000 gold behind. Turret's going to be worked on. Delar in position. The 1-2 punch. It is deadly, but they're going to get the turret. They're happy with it. Might get the mid as well.
Yeah, I think they're going to take as much as they possibly can here just before they back off and take the Lord. Are they going to actually... So they're not even worried about the Lord. They're like, go ahead and go solo that Saksa. We'll keep them at bay. Keep them pressed against the wall. Maybe take another turret here. And Twisted Mind is trying to find a lead somewhere that they can stop Burmese Ghouls' pressure. And I think it's just tough, right? I feel like the Cuffin is going to have to utilize that Frigid Glacier to do something. The Black Dragon also could be utilized to mount up a defense. Again, this is only their first Lord, so it's not enhanced, but Twisted Minds is wide open at this point. They're going to have to...
Gee, you know what is enhanced right now?
Burmese Ghouls.
I think anybody can answer that right now. I mean, with this lead, man, it is deadly. And it's the same thing that happened in the previous game. And even more enhances Delar. Malefic Roar just picked up. Pressure going to be here. They're holding on to this bottom turret. Yeah, it's the first Lord. But at this point, when you have this kind of lead, man, it's tough to deal with, right? Burmese Ghouls completely controlling this pace just like they did in the previous game. So now going to be working for it. Lord in the mid lane. Twisted Minds, the work cut out for them. They have to pull out some kind of miracle here if they can stay into it. Dragon Form going to be popped. Delar on the bat side might be looking for his own entry point. They're going to try to hold on the best they can. Clear the waves out.
Keep an eye
Turret's
on
going to be
Delar.
worked on. It's going to be going. Saxon could be in trouble. Goes in. Wild charge. Not going to find the connection they're looking for. Delar waiting patiently on the backside. Looking for his own entry point.
There it
Goes
is.
in with a 1-2 punch. Gets a couple off. Has to flicker out, though. Lord finally going to get worked on. Taken down by Twisted Mind. Still holding on. Morrow, though, goes in with the I'm offended. There's the glacier they're looking for. But they lose a couple bodies in the making. Cuffin's next. Passive going to be popping. He's going to go down. Now Burmese Ghouls looking to take Twisted Minds out. Still working on the base, but they want to get Mike. They take him out, and now it's only Sano. Base going to be worked on, and Burmese Ghouls will sweep this series 2-0, sending Twisted Minds out.
Sending Twisted Minds home. Burmese Ghouls showing that they are fierce competition in the digital games of the future. Wow.
Wow.
Sweaty hands from my side.
My goodness, dude. That was enhanced gameplay right there, dude. What? Like, I mean, that was scary because that was, like you mentioned, that was the first Lord, man. That was the first Lord. And when you have that kind of lead, what can you do, right? It's rough. It's rough to deal with there.
Yeah, it just Twisted Minds didn't have that defense that they built a wall in the first game, the first series. Coming into the second series, they just didn't have that wall to be able to stop that aggression. And we've seen a couple big plays come off by Twisted Minds. They were grasping for air and trying to keep at bay. And I'm pretty sure we'll see some of the highlights coming here. We can see some of the teams, what's going down here, the disappointment from the side of Twisted Minds, if I'm not mistaken. And that, again, it just goes to show the grit and the tenacity that Burmese Schools has brought to the Land of Dawn.
As is competition, man, right? At some point, someone has to go home, right? Someone has to go home. Someone has to go forward. You can always look at it this way. Again, for Twisted Minds, there's a lot that they can look at this and point things out before these players, before they proceed on for the rest of the year, right? I mean, they got to this point, they got to the playoffs. Both these teams, though, we talked about this, man. As we take a look at the highlights here, we talked about the fact that how the experience was for these two individual teams in the group stage, right? I mean, it was some dicey games that they had, and honestly, I was expecting a 3-game series here, like based off what we saw in the group stages. But there was something about Burmese Ghouls today where it's like, and you pointed this out, I don't know if it was a stage or like the setup that they're going through or what, maybe what they learned from the group stages and everything. But man, like this is a Burmese Ghouls came out hardcore swinging, man. I don't know what they did, but there was not very many weak points in their play today.
No, and I think that just goes to show that they just didn't make mistakes, and then they took advantage of the mistakes that Twisted Minds they did, you know. And I think the turning point was the second turtle when they were trying to utilize that Black Dragon to secure the area, and it worked against them, to be honest. Burmese Schools set a trap, put Twisted Minds in that trap, and then took everything from there. And we can kind of see that they just kept trying to, bait Twisted Minds out. They were able to utilize the Valentina very well. We can see that Nico was 4-1-1. It was just, it was a tough game for Twisted Minds. And I think it ultimately, I mean, from my side of the, being an NA and everything, North America doesn't have on-stage experience. And I feel like that's kind of fallen into Twisted Minds at this point. This was like, I want to say their biggest stage that they walked on. Could that have been a playing factor? Maybe.
Yeah, and speaking of that, like, I don't know, it's kind of poetic. Like, again, against them, their minds just seem literally twisted in this series. I don't know what it was, but they weren't able to pull off what they needed to do from start to finish in both games, and again, MVP here, Stitch on Bruno pick. But really, like, for me personally, this game itself, Delar had an amazing game from, what we kind of saw in game one where he struggled just a little bit, right? I mean, there was a little bit of struggle there, but for this game, like, he was on point with the Paquito, and it allowed Stitch to do what he needed to do on a Bruno. When you are a gold laner and you can have that gold lane experience, like I like to call it, right? Like you can just farm up, you can just knock turrets down. Bruno, by the way, is like one of the best like turret destroyers out there for marksman picks, right? But then you get to scale up really well because of your team pulling things off from start to finish, and then you get to shine really later on. And that's really what allows some of these gold laners to really shine. And as you take a look here at the stats, like, you can see how crazy it was for them.
Oh, definitely. And I think that building off of what you were saying, Stitch, he was just in his golden state. He was, again, it just seemed like Delar showed so much pressure against Mike up there that it forced Morrow to have to rotate up and help the EXP lane, and that just allowed Stitch to just further advance, right? And I feel like that's where the Bruno goes. He is a particular tactile hero, but put into the right hands is an absolute menace in the Land of Dawn. And Twisted Minds, they just kind of fell into it, you know. And it's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. It's a great experience for them, right? I mean, this was a big tournament stage. I like it, you know. And if there's anything that they take from this experience, it's just the experience itself, right? The phygital, the physical and the digital world now coming together, and that's where you get your experience from, right? And I like it, and I feel like they tried their best being on that stage, but I think Burmese Schools, again, kind of going off of what you were talking earlier, is that they just had Group A was tough for Burmese Schools, right? And they held their own. They held their owns in that, and I mean, even